the intro. So hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the horror sequels, good horror sequels video. And so last time we left off, Seth was talking about Scream 4, and I talked about Halloween H20 and Nightmare 3 and 7. And now we're moving on to the Friday the 13th franchise, and Seth's one of his favorite sequels in that franchise was Friday the 13th Part 2. And when he's done talking about that, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite sequels in that franchise, which was Friday the 13th Part 3.
Basically, part 2 was, in my opinion, it was a continuation of part 1. And that was kind of great because in the beginning of part 2, they showed, the lead character, what was her character name? I'm really bad at character names.
The actress's name was Adrienne King.
But anyways, her character, they basically show her dreaming. She's in her house, she's dreaming, and of course, from the previous, nights before, like where it's like, oh crap, I got attacked by that boy, and of course, then after she had gotten attacked, she was taken into custody and saying, hey, well, what happened? It's like, well, what about the boy? He's like, well, ma'am, we didn't find no boy. Well, then he's still there. And so basically that's kind of where part 2 picks off. So I think a lot of people, I think when the film first came out, part 1, of course, the killer was Jason's mom. Now, in the second film, this is, and I'm sure a lot of people have already seen this film. If you haven't, of course, part 2.
This one introduces Jason, which is kind of the lead character
so
of the franchise.
For me, it's safe to say, I could give that away because for me, it's really obvious and it should be to you guys. But anywho, part 2 was just, a new story. Just more teenagers coming to Camp Blood. Basically for the same reason, summer vacation or summer camp, and more teenagers, more blood. Introduction of Jason. Actually, in this film, he doesn't have his hockey mask. That comes until part 3, and part 3,
which is one of my favorite sequels.
And actually, that's one of Tom's favorite sequels, and I'll actually talk to you about part 3 in just a minute. But part 2, instead of wearing a hockey mask, he was wearing I believe it was like a potato bag, and he actually only had one eye hole cut out so that he can see.
I think they did that because his other eye from when he was drowning in the lake, I think one of them molded over from what I saw from the first movie.
Okay,
so I think they wanted, because we briefly saw him in the first movie, I think they wanted to keep that impression, say let's just give him one eye to represent that the other one molded over and that he has no use for it. So.
And this film, without even spoiling the ending, it's kind of nice because part 3 actually shows the ending of part 2. So it's kind of nice because most of the sequels leads to part 2, part 2 leads to part 3. They just, I think all 3 movies have a nice transition into one
and
another.
Actually, what's kind of cool is actually part 7 not only showed us what happened at the end of part 6, it showed us kind of what happened in the first 5 movies, and I think. The guy who said, you're all doomed, he was actually the narrator for this scene. And they actually showed how menacing he was throughout the first 6 movies. I thought that was kind of cool how part 7 led up. Because not only did we see part of part 6, but we also see the reason why Jason's so menacing for the first 5 movies.
That's the only one sad thing I can tell you about part 2 is part 2, they kill off Crazy Ralph.
Yeah.
Actually, Crazy Ralph, he had a lot of funny parts, and I thought he was great because,
like I said, he comes back as the voice narrator for the beginning of
yes,
part
he
7.
does, but actually just his character himself was killed off in part 2. But I think, just for part 1 and part 2, just playing the character as Crazy Ralph, I thought it was a lot of fun. It kind of eased the tension.
Yeah.
Because, of course, like in part 1 and part 2, they show automatically right in the woods. Like,
well, also what's kind of cool about him, too, is there's some scenes that almost play out like you think Crazy Ralph is actually the killer. And I think at the time that was very unique because we're like, oh, it's got to be Crazy Ralph. It's got to be Crazy Ralph. And then you see Jason Murray like, oh, shit.
And it's great that you brought that up because in part 2, he's like, you know what? I told the others and they didn't believe me. You're all doomed.
Yeah.
It was great. It was funny. It was great.
So anyway, guys, continue off of part 2. One of my favorite Friday the 13th sequels was part 3, which I actually, Seth is actually more, I think you like part 2 better, right? Yeah. And I'm more about part 3. I guess the reason why I like part 3 a little bit better is at this point in the Friday the 13th franchise, it was quite clear that, they wanted to go the camp route. They didn't want to have, high-tech Avatar special effects in this series. They wanted to go the camp route. And so I guess to kind of further illustrate that and to really represent what a good Friday the 13th sequel looked like, and also just the fact that this is the first Friday the 13th film where Jason wears the hockey mask, which later became his iconic item throughout the rest of the franchise along with his machete. But anyway, I thought this one was it's even though we got to see the whole the kids return to the summer camp and now they're set up to get slaughtered again and all that stuff. I kind of liked how, at least in my opinion, I think these teenagers were more explained in this one. And kind of like when I was talking about Nightmare 3, you really want them to live. You want them to outbeat Jason in this one. And even though actually one of these teenagers who like to pull pranks on these guys who later gave Jason the hockey mask. Well, not give him. In fact, Jason just kind of took it off.
Yeah,
him,
took it.
I thought he was kind of unique. And I thought just the whole... at that point in the franchise, like I said, it knew it was a camp film, and I almost had more fun watching it because the film felt a little bit more self-aware that they wanted to go that route. Mm-hmm. And even though part 2 was good, I just thought the teenagers were as well developed. I thought the whole potato sack thing was a little bit cheesy. Mm-hmm. But it just felt more. It felt more like a fun sequel, and I felt I had more fun watching this one than I did with even some of the later sequels. So
I thought in part 3 that there was a few cheesy moments, like when it was like the lead girl and the lead guy who eventually became survivors. Actually, the guy didn't survive, but it's funny how in most of the Friday the 13th films, the girl's always the survivor.
Yeah.
But anyways, she was in the like one of the gas stations, and of course, like that gang, like the girl and the two guys, and of course they're picking on her. It's like, may I have my wallet back?
Yeah.
Please. It's like, that's good. That's real good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like even those characters were kind of unique in this film.
They were good. Like I said, I think part 3 for me was more campy. It was just moments like that. But I think, the way it established Jason, how they introduced the hockey mask, and forever Jason was known for the hockey mask. I thought that was really cool and clever. And one other tidbit, I don't know if you knew this, Tom, but part 3, it was the first Friday the 13th film that was introduced in 3D.
Yes, actually, I was just about to bring that up, and I guess that's another reason why this film has a special place in my heart too, because I own one of the special edition versions of this film on DVD, and it actually came with 3D glasses, so I could see what it looked like in 3D when I watched it at my house.
Could you actually see the 3D popping out of the
yes.
analog TV?
And that's what was kind of cool is you have the option watching in 2D, which I've also seen, and in 3D. And when I first saw it, I actually saw it in 3D, like what most people did back in the theater. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, some of the 3D was really cool in this. And if you've seen this film, and if you really want to know how cool the 3D is, look at the scene where a guy is using a yo-yo up and down. And the way they shot that scene was very cool.
It was great because
and in 3D, it actually is very useful.
Well, it was great because the girl was on the couch. She was basically, laying, down on the couch, and the guy was like, trying to get closer and closer with the, it's kind of cool because basically you're in her shoes, and it's like, oh wait, stop it, you're getting too close, with the yo-yo.
And there's actually another scene, too, where one of Jason's kills is actually in 3D with the knife, and I thought that was kind of cool.
That was cool, too, but actually one of the other 3D kills was kind of cool. I think he used, like, a bow and arrow.
Yep.
It was like, and of course you see the arrow coming right directly at it. It's like, no!
Yeah. So I guess that's the reason why Part 3 was so unique is you feel, especially back then where 3D was very rare, you feel like you're more part of the experience, I guess, so... Part 3 was another good one, you guys, and now Seth was going to tell you about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, for me was very fun. I don't think it was probably as good of a story as Part 3, because Part 3, it was kind of nice because, Nancy came back, yada yada. Tom already went to that, but Part 2, for me, it was fun. Not developed as a good story, but it was fun because I think they really developed the Freddy character. I think in the first one, Freddy was a little too serious. Of course, I think he did have his comical moments where he's like, I forget, but anyway, he was, he did have his comical moments. In Part 2, he was, in Part 2, I would say actually he was probably a little more serious.
Yeah.
And he did, like in Part 1, have some of his comical moments, but it was kind of cool because, you kind of saw, like, the dark side of Freddy Krueger. Mm-hmm.
Especially the scene with the shower and the gym teacher. I thought that scene was very dark.
Oh, yeah.
Very dark scene.
Especially. And it was funny because I would say, for me, actually, it took about 2 or 3 times to actually figure out. Remember, because actually the main character, who lived with his parents.
Yep.
Basically, who took over for Nancy,
I thought it was kind of cool.
Anyways, he was taken home from the police.
Yeah.
It's like, well, ma'am, we have your boy here. And at first he thought that was a dream. To me, I thought that was a dream. And actually, before that, they show the shower scene with the coach, that he was dragged in basically by basically like an invisible person, which was Freddy. dragged into the shower, was whipped several times with a wet towel, and eventually, clawed on his back.
Yeah, it's a very campy scene, but it's very dark.
I mean, I would say it's very dark, but I think that was kind of cool for me. Just watching this film is you kind of I think Freddy's character was a little more developed. He wasn't always being silly. You just saw more of his dark side, and of course, you kind of saw that. I think one of the more darker moments in the film was actually towards the end, when Freddy crashed on the party.
Yeah.
And of course, like
help yourself or whatever.
Oh yeah. It's like help yourself, or whatever. I forget what he says, but anyways, yeah. He's like, of course, he extends his arms like this, and of course, once he does that, like flame, is in the background.
I also
like, you are no,
my children.
Yeah, exactly. You are no. Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was great too. But and on top of that, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Freddy versus Jason. Like the I don't know what kind of creature it was like a slug almost. Remember the creature?
Yeah, I remember the slug creature.
But anyways, that was first introduced, I believe, in actually part 2, when she was actually in the
it might be Nightmare 3, because in Nightmare 3 he turned into a snake in one scene.
Oh, was it? But I think part 2 actually was introduced. First they showed like the killer cat.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But anyways,
that
was the killer cat.
Yeah, I remember that.
Was
he had like
eating the rat.
Evil animal things. Yeah.
But anyways, I believe when she had first walked into the the factory, I think that same slug was you would see that same slug that was introduced into Freddy vs. Jason.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool. So anyways, they just introduced like new creatures, that like that it wasn't just Freddy, in his claw.
Well, also, they introduced the idea that he can take over someone's soul, which was something that I don't think it showed up throughout the rest of the series, but they introduced the idea that he can take over someone's soul if he can do it right, kind of a thing.
And I thought that was kind of neat too, of actually how.
Because remember how he took over Jesse's body at one point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see actually how Jesse survived at the end. Now, I don't want to spoil it for any of you that haven't seen it.
And there actually is a surprise ending.
It was actually pretty cool, and of course, actually that's how Jesse. I don't want to say if he survived or got killed, but it was kind of a cool ending. Technically, for me, it was 2 endings. How Jesse, should I say? I don't want to give it away, but
there's the ending that dealt with the bus. Remember the bus?
Well, yeah, but that's actually the last, or I would say for me the final ending.
Yeah.
But that was kind of cool too. So for me, it was kind of they had 2 endings, and 2 endings were kind of a shocker. I would say the final ending was more of a shocker, but I would say the first ending, where Jesse, I'll just come out and say it, where he survives. But it was kind of cool actually how he survives, and he had this really good feeling. It's like, oh sweet. Freddy's dead. They no longer believe in him, and actually that's how to defeat Freddy. So, anyways, it was a fun, campy film. Probably not as, like I said, not as well developed story as part 3, but a really good film for me.
It's a well done part 3. Yeah. So hey guys, when we come back, we're gonna it's gonna be part 3 of our good horror sequels. So make sure you stick around for part 3.